The snow didn't fall, it attacked. Sideways, violent, slicing across Lake Erie like it had a personal vendetta. The wind roared at 36 miles per hour. The temperature hovered just above freezing, and visibility came and went like a dying light bulb. These are the kinds of conditions that expose quarterbacks, humiliate them, reduce even veterans to shaky versions of themselves. But in the middle of that swirling chaos stood a rookie who wasn't supposed to be ready, wasn't supposed to be trusted, and definitely wasn't supposed to carry a franchise with 42 failed quarterbacks behind it. Yet Shedeur Sanders did his job. Cleveland did not do theirs. He threw 16 completions on 25 attempts, protected the football, delivered the team's only offensive touchdown, and looked like the most composed player in a game that should have swallowed him whole. And somehow, after all that, the Browns still turned a competitive fight into an 18-point blowout, not because of the rookie, because of everything around him. That's the part people need to understand. Today wasn't evidence that Shedeur fell short. It was a spotlight on how deeply this organization continues to sabotage itself. On special teams, in play calling, in every phase that doesn't involve the quarterback they've ignored for months. And if this is what Shedeur looks like in a storm, imagine what he could be in stability. Before we break down everything that went wrong around Shedeur Sanders on this frozen afternoon, you have to understand the bizarre pathway that led him to this moment. Because nothing about his rookie season has been normal. Not his draft position, not his development, not the way Cleveland handled him from the day he arrived. Shedeur didn't walk into the league with the red carpet treatment most high-profile quarterbacks receive. He wasn't given immediate reps with the starters. He wasn't even treated like a quarterback the organization planned to build around. Instead, he landed as a fifth-round pick, 143 prospects taken before him, and was quietly tucked behind 3 different quarterbacks on a depth chart that never stopped shifting. Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, Dillon Gabriel. All of them received opportunities Shedeur never touched. And that's where the tension begins. While Gabriel struggled through 6 starts, producing one of the lowest efficiency grades in the league, Sanders remained glued to the scout team. He didn't take a single practice rep with the starting offense until week 11. Not one. Think about how insane that is. The Browns drafted 2 rookie quarterbacks, yet couldn't decide how to develop either one, leaving Shedeur to watch from a distance while the offense sputtered week after week. Then, desperation struck. Gabriel went down, and suddenly the quarterback Cleveland ignored for half a year was told he had 6 days to prepare as a starter. 6 days to build chemistry with receivers he'd barely thrown to. 6 days to command an offense he'd only studied on film. And somehow, he delivered a win in his debut. Somehow he looked like the calmest player on the field again today. Somehow the rookie Cleveland, treated like an afterthought, became the only steady part of a collapsing team. But that's where today's story turns in a way nobody expected, because for a brief moment, it looked like Shedeur was about to drag the Browns into something special. There's a moment in every rookie season when you find out whether a quarterback is just surviving or actually belonging. And for Shedeur Sanders, that moment came with 46 seconds left in the first half, right when most young quarterbacks tighten up, panic, or shrink under pressure. Instead, Shedeur delivered a throw so clean, so deliberate, so perfectly timed that it sent shockwaves through NFL Twitter within seconds. Harold Fannin Jr. sprinted up the left sideline on a wheel route, the kind of play that demands timing and nerve. Pressure crashed in from Shedeur's blind side, the kind that usually forces quarterbacks to bail out or eat a sack. But Shedeur didn't move backward. He didn't flinch. He stepped forward, reset his feet, and dropped a 34-yard moonshot into Fannin's stride, like he'd been doing it for a decade. 2 defenders collided with Fannin at the goal line. It didn't matter. Touchdown! Cleveland takes the lead. And that one play set the football world on fire. Shannon Sharpe immediately declared the Browns' offense finally looks functional. LeBron James posted praise, Skip Bayless went ballistic, yelling that the Browns had kept Shedeur handcuffed until this moment. Even rival fan bases admitted that was an NFL throw from a kid who wasn't supposed to look this composed yet. For about 60 seconds, it felt like the beginning of a turning point, not just for the game, but maybe for the entire franchise. A rookie in brutal weather, firing strikes with confidence. A crowd that had. Cleveland's sideline, even players who weren't on the field could feel momentum shifting towards something bigger than a single drive. But that's when fate, or Cleveland's self-inflicted chaos, stepped in. Because everything that happened next had nothing to do with Shedeur Sanders. And everything to do with a franchise that still can't stop sabotaging itself. What happened after Shedeur's touchdown wasn't football strategy, wasn't talent disparity, and wasn't rookie mistakes. It was Cleveland doing what Cleveland does, finding new, spectacular ways to implode. Because the 49ers didn't seize momentum. The Browns gifted it to them, wrapped in gold and tied with a bow of pure incompetence. It started with a punt, a routine, harmless punt with under a minute left before halftime. And yet somehow, impossibly, Sky Moore ripped off a 66-yard return that carved straight through Cleveland's coverage unit. Not a trick play, not a schemed masterpiece, just a catastrophic miss. Failure in lane discipline that left the crowd stunned. Seconds later, Christian McCaffrey walked in a touchdown from 2 yards out. Not because the defense broke, because the special teams unit put them on the field at the 16-yard line with zero chance to breathe. But Cleveland wasn't done sabotaging itself. Early in the third quarter, on 4th and 1, the Browns dialed up a trick play straight out of desperation theater. Harold Fannin Jr. under center. A gadget look, a gamble. The kind of call that only works when the football gods feel generous. Today they didn't. Fannin fumbled the snap. The 49ers pounced, and 3 plays later, Brock Purdy waltzed into the end zone. Shedeur watched from the sideline as the lead he helped build evaporated through no fault of his own. And then came the dagger. Fourth quarter, defense locked in. Browns forcing a punt. A chance, finally, to tilt momentum back in their favor. Gage Larvain drifted under the ball, hesitated, let it bounce, and then disaster. It grazed his hands and spilled onto the turf like a live grenade. San Francisco recovered at the 18-yard line. 6 plays later, touchdown. Game effectively over. 3 touchdowns, 3 short fields, 3 Cleveland implosions. Shedeur didn't cause a single one, and somehow he was the one people tried to blame. When the scoreboard tilts heavily against a team, people instinctively blame the quarterback. It's the easiest narrative, the loudest headline, the simplest conclusion. But today's loss wasn't just misleading. It's a perfect example of how box scores lie and how a young quarterback can play winning football while the structure around him collapses piece by piece. Look at what Shedeur actually did. 0 turnovers in snow and 36-mile-per-hour winds. That alone is rare for any quarterback, let alone a rookie facing one of the league's most disciplined defenses. He completed 16 of 25 passes, including several throws that required absolute precision in swirling conditions. He opened the game 6 for 8, moving the ball with the kind of rhythm Cleveland hasn't had in weeks. And when the Browns needed a spark, he delivered the highlight touchdown that briefly gave them life. Yes, he took 3 sacks. Yes, he held the ball too long on a few snaps. But ask yourself, who wouldn't? When the pocket collapses inconsistently, when receivers struggle against one of the NFL's toughest secondaries, when every passing attempt feels like throwing into a wind tunnel, mistakes aren't signs of failure, they're survival. And here's the part people conveniently forget. The 49ers entered this game with just 13 sacks on the entire season. Shedeur didn't walk into a slaughterhouse. he walked into a defense that suddenly smelled blood after watching Cleveland's special teams hand them momentum over and over. Any rookie would feel that pressure. Most veterans would too. Despite all of it, Shedeur kept his composure. He protected the football. He kept the offense afloat. He showed command that should have the Browns' front office asking why he wasn't given meaningful reps months earlier. Because here's the reality the box score hides. Shedeur played well enough to win. The Browns played poorly enough to guarantee a loss. And that's where the story shifts. Because when a team collapses this consistently and this dramatically, the problem isn't the quarterback. It's the organization around him. If today proved anything, it's that Cleveland's problem isn't under center, it's everywhere else. The Browns didn't just lose because of bad luck or weather. They lost because once again, the franchise found creative new ways to undercut the very player they're pretending to evaluate. And this pattern didn't begin today. It's been brewing since the moment Shedeur Sanders walked into the building. Think about the timeline. Reports claim Shedeur spent 6 months buried on the depth chart, working exclusively with backups and scout team players, while the front office cycled through quarterbacks who struggled week after week. When the rookie finally touched the field in Week 11, he had never practiced with the starting offense. Not one snap. Not one install session built around his strengths. Not one opportunity to build chemistry with the receivers he would eventually be judged on. That's not development. That's negligence disguised as patience. And yet, despite being thrown into a situation almost guaranteed to expose him, Shedeur steadied the offense, won his first start, and followed it with a respectable performance today in impossible weather. But Cleveland's issues run deeper than quarterback play. This is the same franchise that trivia and more like a warning label. It speaks to instability, panic, poor planning, and a culture that eats its own quarterbacks alive. Today's meltdown only reinforced that history. Special teams miscues, questionable fourth down trickery, mental errors, situational coaching failures. None of that falls on a rookie passer. But all of it shapes the environment he's expected to survive in. Rumors suggest some inside the organization never believed in Shedeur from the start, that he was drafted as a long-term project rather than a real competitor. Others argue the Browns were simply afraid of the spotlight and pressure that comes with the Sanders name. Whatever the truth is, the results speak louder than the theories. Shedeur is doing his part. The Browns are not. And as Cleveland doesn't fix the system around him soon, they won't just waste another season. They'll waste another promising quarterback entirely. The Browns didn't just announce Shedeur Sanders as the Week 14 starter because they're committed to him long-term. They announced it because they have no choice. The organization is officially backed into a corner. Every remaining game now shapes not only Shedeur's trajectory, but the entire off-season strategy, the quarterback room, and the front office's reputation. Here's why. Cleveland is staring at a crossroads with 3 possible outcomes. Scenario 1. Shedeur continues playing clean football, shows growth each week, and proves he can win despite the chaos around him. If that happens, the Browns enter the offseason with something they haven't had in decades: hope. A rookie quarterback who survived adversity and still delivered moments of brilliance. A young player teammates rally behind. A reason to stop reaching for emergency fixes every single year. Scenario 2. He plays well enough to spark debate, but not well enough to silence doubts. That's the purgatory zone, where the Browns start flirting with the idea of bringing in competition. Maybe a mid-round rookie, maybe a veteran bridge quarterback. It's the worst possible scenario because it wastes time, splits reps, and stalls development. Scenario 3. He collapses under the weight of a dysfunctional system. Not because he isn't talented, but because no quarterback thrives when special teams self-destructs. Trick plays implode, and the organization keeps tripping over its own decisions. If this happens, Cleveland hits the reset button again. Only now it's even harder because Shedeur's presence complicates the depth chart and the draft board. And here's the twist Ross Tucker hinted at. The more Shedeur wins, the harder it becomes for the Browns to move on. A few late-season victories could push Cleveland out of range for a top quarterback prospect. Suddenly, the front office has to commit, whether they're ready or not. So yes, the next few weeks will reveal Shedeur's potential, but they'll expose something even more important. Can the Browns finally stop sabotaging their own future long enough to build around a quarterback who actually gives them a chance? By the time the snow settled and the scoreboard froze at 42-24, the story wasn't about a rookie quarterback who failed. It was about a franchise that once again collapsed around the only player who seemed capable of stabilizing it. And that's where today's game becomes something bigger than a single loss. It becomes a case study in how promising quarterbacks vanish in Cleveland. Not because they can't play, but because the organization surrounding them seems determined to repeat the same mistakes year after year, decade after decade. Shedeur Sanders didn't walk into ideal circumstances. He didn't get the multi-month development arc other rookies enjoy. He didn't have a defense gifting him short fields or special teams bailing him out. Instead, he inherited weather chaos, poor field position, disastrous mistakes from units he doesn't control, and a franchise haunted by 42 previous attempts to find stability at the most important position in sports. And here's the part that should terrify the fan base. Shedeur actually handled all of it. He played clean football. He delivered a high-difficulty touchdown throw. He kept the offense functional in conditions that make even veterans crumble. He did the one thing Cleveland quarterbacks rarely do. He gave the team a chance. But the Browns didn't return the favor. They muffed punts, fumbled trick plays, surrendered short fields, and erased every ounce of momentum he created. That isn't on Shedeur. That's on a franchise that still hasn't learned how to protect, support, or develop its most important investment. So the final question isn't whether Shedeur Sanders can succeed in the NFL. He can. He already is. The real question, the one this franchise can't avoid anymore, is whether the Cleveland Browns can finally stop being the Cleveland Browns long enough to let a rookie with real talent grow into the quarterback he's capable of becoming. Because if they can't, it won't just be another loss. It'll be another quarterback wasted, another cycle restarted, another chapter added to a curse that should have ended years ago.